Are you trying to dominate your fantasy football league? Do you want so many championship rings it's impossible to sign autographs? Well, crack open a beer, pour yourself a glass of bourbon, and settle in, because you've come to the right place. Welcome to Hammercast.
All right, welcome to the Double D's podcast, which is part of the Hammercast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Coleman, and on this episode, we have special guest Ben Eby from the Destination Devy to talk about his scouting process in the 2024 class. Ben, thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you and then some of that great work that you've been doing that I've been following for a long time, and I hope none of my league mates can hear. So that's all you.
Man, I appreciate you big time, Kevin. We've already talked about being fellow basketball coaches. It's cool to discuss a different sport when you have a mind of a coach, no matter what sport it is. So, you guys can find me at Mr_EBY. And I'm doing a lot of work with Destination Devy. Ray picked me up, and, I'm super humbled to just have a show on the Destination Devy network. You just type in Destination Devy on whatever podcast platform, and each one of my shows comes out every Friday, is labeled as Elite Seekers. And that's what we're talking about. We're really focused on just the freshmen, the incoming freshmen, the current freshmen, and just underclassmen in general. So we're trying to get a jump, help everybody out with those Devy players, those C2C leagues, and just have a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, no, and it's important to do. You got to find those guys, and especially with campus camp leagues, those things are. I got into those a couple years ago, and it's a whole new ball game. The dudes you're drafting in the 44th round, you got to be able to find some guys. And so I appreciate you coming on. And, if you haven't seen Destination Devy, you definitely have to. It's going to be massive. It's already massive, but it's going to grow. And the reason why is because guys like Ben and I know Jacob and those other guys do a lot of good work, and Ray. You talked about being a coach, and, I'm a varsity coach. I coach basketball. You coach basketball. When you're scouting and we're looking at these things, and as from a coaching perspective, I think we can kind of look at it from a different kind of perspective. What do you use as a coach? Like, what do you see there? Does it help you, as a sports you coach? Does it help you kind of look at these athletes out there?
Yeah, I think, as I played Dynasty now for a little over 10 years, and Devy specifically for, I think, just over seven or 8 years, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
As a coach's mind, I think what I learned, because I wasn't trained as a scout. I played football only until my sophomore year before I was getting too many injuries to play basketball, but I played college basketball. So, I didn't want to, I was like, I can't get hurt during football season, so I can't hoop.
You sound like all my basketball guys.
I don't. Oh man, I was like under $150 soaking wet in high school. It's crazy. So yeah, just kind of as a coach now, as I've transitioned as a coach for basketball and track, I kind of look at a lot of the intangibles. We might be looking at certain traits of players, but I also want to. I'm kind of looking at in between plays. How are they reacting with their teammates? What are we seeing by coaches or articles out there as far as their attitude or their interviews? What are they saying? Are they saying things that I'm like, this guy is mentally tough, or this guy, it doesn't matter what challenges are coming in his way. Yeah. This guy gets it and he's going to fight through that. And I wholeheartedly believe that when a player at any level believes in themselves and believes that every challenge that comes their way is just an opportunity to get better, those type of people are scary when then you start to look at some of these more technical, physical skills. So an example for me that really took off is DK last year. So I'm a Seahawks fan. I was born and raised in the Seattle area, but DK Metcalf. So a lot of people were super down on him in the offseason. I started going crazy in the spring. And it wasn't just out of nowhere. It wasn't like, okay, my Seahawks got him. He's going into year 2. I love Russ. Yeah, that stuff's big. But it was how him and Russ started to react to each other, and how DK started to speak in interviews. My buddy runs a training program that DK goes to, or where he trains. So I started to hear these things about this guy wants to be the best ever. And then you pair him with a quarterback like Russ, who we first however many years was like, this guy's corny. There's no way he believes the stuff he's saying. Like, this is the most corniest interview we've ever heard. But then you're like, now at this point in his career, like, okay, he's not that corny. Like, this dude's saying all this stuff and he really believes it. Yeah. He lives it. So pairing what I saw DK talking about and then, the behind the scenes work and stuff with those physical attributes, I'm like, something is about to explode. And that was, so that's always been a thing for me is I do look at mentality. I look at how these guys talk in press conferences at NFL level. Now, if we're talking high school level, there's a ton out there for high school interviews. Like, the deeper you get, the harder it's going to be to find, but there's all kinds of local stuff out there. So if you dig deep enough, you can get pieces and it's not going to be 100% accurate all the time, but you get enough of this info to pair with, these other traits that we'll talk about. And it becomes real interesting, man. It's simple what you can see on the field, but what's going on in the head as well.
You guys can't see me on the podcast, but I am smiling because as a coach, this is just talking to me because the tangible stuff matters. I don't care, as someone who's coached, I've coached varsity now. It'll be my 10th year coaching. And I will take dudes that want to grind and work and just give me 100% effort than the dude that walks in with the shoes untied 10 minutes before practice and just hangs out. And I think that's a good part of it. And I like that you brought up kind of the tape and you can go get interviews. High school kids, it is tough, but you can see how they interact. And I think, for me, I don't know necessarily because I haven't really got into details and research on it, but the guys that have those big elaborate kind of I'm going to pick Alabama and I'm going to do these with the dog and all that kind of stuff. Some of those guys just don't work out because they're more about their brand, right? We hear brand all the time and we talk about that, but give me the dudes that come out of nowhere that want to grind and work. And I agree with you there. I love that. I love that aspect. And I think we see it a little differently as coaches, right? Like I'm not a scout either. I played one semester of college football at like basic community college, which is nothing. And I was trash and I was like, all right, I'm not in high school anymore. And so like, I look at it from a perspective as a coach too. And I think you killed it. I think that's true. I think you got to look at that intangible stuff. And I always, when you read any of my stuff and any stuff, I always talk about intangibles and people always give me crap about it. But like, no, man, you got to talk about that because there's something about that kid. There's something about him. And that's the reason why I really loved AJ Brown. That's the reason why I really like these guys. I love Valladay from Wyoming. I don't know if you know Xavier Valladay. He's one of my guys, and I know he's old, and I know he doesn't fit into the BMI, and I know he doesn't fit into the stuff that people talk about. But I love the way he plays, and it just gets me excited. That's as a coach, that's what I like to see.
Yeah, it's a blast, man. And I think when I play college ball, community college level as well, I didn't play a whole lot early on, and I think it also gives you a perspective to see. That level of whatever sport it is and kind of learn, you kind of see the interaction of how players react to their teammates. You kind of see how they react to the coaches. I think all that stuff is so valid when we're building a team as a coach or when we're building a team in the world of Devy or, campus can, whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, I think it all works. For me, that's true. And I know that you do your elite seeker stuff. I love it. I love finding those guys and you're looking at them when we're looking at, so overall, I struggle with, well, I'll start here. What position do you feel like you got down? Like you feel like that you as a scout or as someone that you can process tape and you can look at it, what's the position that you feel like, hey, I got that one?
I think I feel strongest around wide receiver. Okay. That's an area that, I absolutely love. I think from early on in my early dynasty days, I connected with Ryan McDowell and really kind of dug deep into that. And I used to build my teams around wide receiver. So it made me study the wide receiver position a lot more. So I feel probably most comfortable about wide receiver, but I'll say when I'm dealing with underclassmen, this is a whole new ball game. It's the accuracy. I'm not going to go out there and say that, my elite seeker show is going to pin every single stud out there. I'm going to do my best with the information I have, but I wouldn't say any of them are easy early on. It's a lot different looking at a high school tape or a freshman tape versus a guy that's a junior or senior, that we kind of have a little bit more information on. These guys evolve so much between those couple years. So wide receiver, definitely the strongest though.
Yeah, you guys gotta realize when you're watching high school tape, those dudes are so physically gifted compared to like the 5'7" guy that's taking my world history class he's just out there at corner because they don't have anywhere to go. Like you got to really be careful with like what you're watching. And what I do, and I don't know if you do this, I'm sure you do. You're better than I am. But what I kind of do is I always look up, okay, what division are they playing in? Because that can change no matter where the country's at. And I always try to, okay, 5A is what? Okay, if he's in a 5A program, does that mean that he's in the Alabama 5A program? Or California, where Division I is actually the one. So you got to really be careful with the level of talent. Now, skills and stuff always translate for me. But you still got to look at that. And I think that's important for people. Sometimes they just look up 247 Sports and they're number one. Okay, well, that's not always a guarantee. When you're trying to scout these guys, you'll see it. I love wide receivers too. I'm a zero running back guy. Don't kill me out there, everybody. I like building my wide receivers. I love wide receiver. I don't know what it about. Like that's why I love Jamar Chase so much. I just love watching him play the position. My wife will kill me. I'll be sitting in bed on YouTube and I'll just be watching wide receiver tape. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I'm just watching my tape."
I love it, man. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so that's just how I do it. Now, for me, I'll kind of talk about the position. I don't know. Let's start with the quarterback. I don't struggle with quarterback. I don't necessarily struggle too much with I've had my misses, obviously, but Josh Rosen. But when you're looking at kind of like what you're looking for in a quarterback, my personal favorite is accuracy. I don't know about yours. I really put that above a lot and kind of that mental processing. So for me, when I'm looking at a quarterback's tape, and can they put the ball wherever they want, or can they mentally process what's going on in the field? And so those are the two spots I look at. What about you?
Yeah, decision making is my number one by far. Okay. Are these guys going to not just be accurate on that first progression, but are they able to go through their second, third, fourth guy? Like if you can see that early on in a career, like, high school wise or whatever, like you're looking at someone who studies the game. So there has to be work ethic for that to happen. And they got to have a really good understanding or a really good partnership with their coach or a little bit of both. So that decision making is by far the best piece for me there. But when we're talking like when I'm doing a show like Elite Seekers, I'm not just trying to peg every player that I think is going to make the NFL or every player that I think could make your dynasty team or whatever it might be. I am looking for that highest potential. Mm-hmm. I am looking for someone that I think could develop into an elite prospect. And when I say elite, I'm talking top 10 in the NFL at their position one day. That's the hope. So I'm breaking down these players that I'm hoping have something that allows them to get there. So quarterback position, decision-making, if that's not there, I don't care what kind of prospect you're looking for, good luck with that. Yeah. But arm strength, arm talent is huge. I do put in the accuracy under that area there with the arm talent. Because if you can process everything, and then you obviously got to get the ball there on time, and there's a ton of different throws, different levels that we're looking at. And then the piece that I use for when I'm looking at a potential elite prospect is not necessarily like I'm not looking for the next Lamar Jackson when it comes to legs, but I put it down as escapability. Does this quarterback have the ability to extend plays? Can they move around the pocket? Can they get outside the pocket? Not just always just take off 20 yards up the field, which you see a ton in high school, right? When we're watching that film, but are these guys going to take off just to get away from that pass rush, still keeping their eyes down the field, still using that decision-making, and are they able to make a big play for their team?
Yeah, no, I tend to call it the same thing. I say make plays off script. Just kind of, hey, can they kind of adjust to what the defense is given to them? And I think you brought up a good point about accuracy. Be careful with the numbers, all the number guys out there, because accuracy can change depending on how many 5-yard outs are they throwing or how many, swing passes are they throwing, how many curl routes are they kind of going. So I always try to look those advanced stats of the intermediate to long range. Hey, where are they going with that ball? How deep a pass? That's why I love Trevor Lawrence so much. He's one of the most accurate guys deep that we've seen in college football and looking at his stats. So I kind of just, I'm going to throw it out here for you because I didn't tell you this, but I like to throw you off guard a little bit. What do you think of Mac Jones then? What is your opinion of him? Because you just said your quarterback. And so because I have a hard time with Mac. I really do.
Yeah, I think his decision-making is elite. Escapability, not so much. That would be my issue. I think that Mac could be a really good, quarterback, probably in that 15 to 10 range, at the ceiling, in my opinion. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. But I think his decision making is elite, and we saw that, and we saw what he looks like with NFL studs. So yeah, he was loaded with studs, but in the right situation, I could see him being a really good, smart quarterback that consistently takes his team to the next level because he can make all the throws, right? And the decision making is there. That escapability piece, though, I don't think we're gonna go see him go to a 40 to 50 passes a game offense. So that would be my only issue. So I don't think I have an issue. I think he'll be a great value in upcoming rookie drafts. I think he will drop a little bit, especially with testing numbers coming in. You're already seeing pictures where like, he doesn't have a 6-pack, so we're going to toss him out the window. Like, this is third rounder now all of a sudden. Like, there's going to be a lot of that. So there's going to be so much fluctuation when we're talking about these rookie drafts for whatever reason. But he's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's an elite quarterback.
That's fair. No, I mean, he's got my dad bod going on there, Ben. Like, I don't know. Like, I was watching him. I was like, man, you're looking like me out there, buddy. But no, I mean, I think that I like him. But like I said, like, he's just someone that when he pops, he's not popping off the tape. Like when I watch Trey Lance, I'm like, holy shit, this guy can. Woo. And you like Mac Jones, it's like, whoa.
Well, one thing I'll say though, like going back to the intangibles, I'm a huge fan of Bryce Young, and I thought there was no way that Bryce Young wasn't starting this year. Sure, we had our offseason and all that probably played into a little bit, but credit to Mac Jones, man. He took that job and just ran with it, and they just ran through everybody. So it's a very, very talented team, but to be mentally tough enough to sit behind, Hurts early on and Young, and then make it to that level where then you run the table when it's your name called. Hey, man, like it wouldn't surprise me if he continues to go after people because there's something that's working upstairs for him.
That's a fair point, and that's as I'm thinking about it, you're right. I mean, I saw Bryce Young play in high school. That dude's a monster, and I cannot wait to watch him play. But I thought there was no way. And I saw him and DJ play against each other in that championship game when they at Mater Dei down there, and no, excuse me, not Mater Dei. So we watched it, and St. John Bosco was out there, and so it was a great game. And again, Mac held him off, so that's a good call. For me, me personally, running backs for me is one of those. I'm not terrible at drafting running backs, but scouting wise, there's so many misses in that group. If you could just go in the last 5-10 years, and I did it today. The top 10 on 247 Sports for running backs, it's usually like 1 or 2 out of that top 10 are actually legitimately prospects in the NFL. And so, running back for me, when you're watching it, and everybody thinks they watch tape, but you really just watch the Just Bomb Productions highlight videos and you see like the good plays. You got to really watch those other plays in there. What do you look for in running backs? What are you looking for there?
Vision is going to be number one, by far. If you don't have the vision, you're going to have a lot of problems. You're not going to be able to get to where you need to get, regardless of what type of athlete, speed, all that stuff that you have.
Yeah.
I think a big issue is people check out 40 times way too much for running backs, and we're seeing guys that don't run great 40s pop off and just have incredible NFL years, and that's something that I think is way overrated when we're talking about running backs. Lateral agility is probably one of my biggest things, along with just footwork. Like, do these guys have feet that keep moving? Mm-hmm. And then do they have, like, when I'm talking about younger prospects, like what I'm dealing with, do they have the frame to add on muscle? I think you got to get to that 210 mark if you're going to be a solid running back. Sure, I'm not talking about your scat back, stuff like that, but you got to be able to put on some muscle to, just stay on the field, right? Because as you continue to play at higher levels, these guys hit harder, and it's a brutal position. But I do think running back is going to be a lot harder to predict because of opportunity. I think if a guy has good footwork, he can move his feet, he might be a 4'6", 4'7" guy and still be a really good running back if there's good blocking, he has good vision, right?
Yeah.
So that type of guy isn't going to pop when you're looking at Rivals or 24/7 or any of those type of recruiting services. Those guys aren't going to pop on film, but if their feet keep moving in the right system, anybody can really become a strong running back in a system. So that's interesting for me. And I think, in my opinion, that's why as you mentioned, you might see only a couple of those guys on make it all the way and become a stud, right? So they're obviously going to have the leg up a little bit as far as coming in and potentially having some opportunity. But even these top studs, say you go to Alabama, well, guess what? You're going to be there with 4 other top studs. So you still have to fight your way. Yeah. It's not like, oh, you're going to Alabama. Well, your turn will come in one of these years. It's not how it works. So it's definitely interesting. And then the last piece I look at, obviously they have to have a receiving ability of some sort. I don't care if it's only a few catches and we see a little bit, but there's a lot of tape. You look out there and you don't see any catches. It's tough. You got to find out, is that, are these guys playing maybe 7-on-7? So that's another thing I'll look into, because there's a lot of schemes out there in high school where they're just not going to put it because their quarterback might suck or whatever. Yeah. They're just not going to risk throwing to it in the flat. They might not even be able to make that type of throw. So I'm checking out, is this running back playing 7-on-7? Because then I'm going to see him running some wide receiver routes. And if I see that, then I feel a lot more comfortable on what they could grow into. But in order to get an elite prospect down the road, they got to have some sort of receiving ability.
And I feel like you talk about my high school. We ran the wing T, baby. There was no passing going on in that offense. It was just run, and then more. And like what he's talking about, like I pulled up the 2018 class. So Zamir White was the number 1 rated running back. He's still there. He's not necessarily probably the number 1 going into next year. Ricky Pearson from North Carolina State, Lorenzo Lingard from Miami, Brian Sneed, Ohio State, and then Harold Joyner from Auburn. I don't know about you guys, but those were the top 5. And now you look at them now, and some of those guys haven't even been able to see the field. And that probably brings back some memories right there for you, some names. But that's kind of like, guys, that running back spot, you got to be, it's tough, like he talked about. And I'm in agreement with him. Obviously, he knows what he's talking about. But for me, vision and footwork, you got to have that. And short and that lateral quickness, I feel like you can build on that as a running back. But that's key there. So I know, I agree. I think that's good stuff. If you're listening to this, you better be writing this stuff down, because this is how you kind of can scout these guys. And if you're playing in Devy leagues for the first time, you need to kind of get through these guys, because everybody knows the top guys. Everybody's going to know them. Where you separate yourself is, hey, can I get ahead of, hey, can I draft these guys that come out of nowhere, and Breece Hall and these guys in the freshman year before they come out? And then how do you get these guys in the 7th to 8th round when they're freshmen? That's where your value is. I can't explain that enough to you guys. Now, as far we kind of talked about wide receivers already, so it's up to you. You can kind of just mention a couple things that you like. For me, it's route running. I don't know what your top one is for me, or just that ability to create space, but go ahead.
Yeah, as far as route running, if I'm talking early on, to me, it's almost overrated, believe it or not. So I'm looking more like specifically at the release off the line. So how much are they exploding off the line? What do they do against press coverage? I don't care if they're beating it with strength. I don't care if they're beating it with a good footwork move or whatever it might be. The release is probably more important to me. I think route running can be developed, and what you'll notice is you might find supreme athletes later in, the rankings that, are coming out as freshmen and whatnot, that probably started playing wide receiver maybe in college because they were a quarterback before or whatever it might be, and switching that position. So their route running might be trash out of the gates. But look at that school now. Is this a school that typically has decent route running? Is there an ability to develop there? So route running, when I'm looking at Devy, is going to be a little bit more overrated for me. I think you classed it though as separation too. So, separation at the top for whatever, if it's just a speed thing, a strength thing, whatever, that's great. But contested catch and yak ability, yards after catch, those are things that don't really matter. Like if you're an athlete and in your younger playing days and they get you the ball, however, a good coach is going to get their athletes the ball. Yeah. And you find a way to make something happen. Cool. Now I get it. Now I understand. We can teach you some more technical things. I think route running is very teachable. And now let's go ahead and see what you can do at the next level. Now, with that said, when we're talking about athletes, we got to look how fast can someone change direction. You can still see that without watching their route running. Are they able to, get in and out of breaks, things like that. Those are still pieces where they might be trash at their overall route. But there's pieces in there where when I teach you how to run the proper route, you will become a better wide receiver for it.
That's fair.
And then hands, big time.
Yeah,
hands, because there's a lot of athletes out there that look phenomenal once they have the ball. Like, oh my goodness, but they body catch it all the time. Those are ones that concern me a little bit, right? As the defense gets better and more athletic.
What about our boy Darius Hayward-Bay, right? That's pretty much sums up him. He had everything but the hands. He just couldn't figure that out. Contested catch for me too is a huge one. That's why I love watching Jamar Chase play football. And that's why he comes down with every 50-50 ball. The way that he can create separation, I don't know if you watched it. I love when he goes up for those 50-50 balls. He does great things with his hands. He maneuvers very well. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's like basketball, but you can see him boxing the player out. You can see that tendency, that strength. And I love it. That's why everybody's talking about it. He's my wide receiver one just because of that skill that he possesses. And I feel like other receivers in this class don't possess that single skill. Now they do, but just not to the level of him. Now tight ends are my favorite just because, man, I just love those tight ends. I'm just an intangible guy. And it's harder to scout tight ends because I think it's hard to see. Yeah, it's hard to scout them because you don't know where that breakout is. A lot of these dudes are just really good athletes, and then they come into the college and they got to develop. I love all the intangible stuff. Hands for me is big for tight ends. Can they just damn catch the ball? Let's just start there, and then we can kind of work on it like you talked about. How about you for tight ends?
Yeah, hands and athletic ability. And then the last one I got is nastiness. I like to see, I don't care about blocking per se nowadays. Like blocking's fun, don't get me wrong, but like I don't care if you're lined up as the wide receiver because a lot of these more athletic tight ends, that's what we're doing. We're lining them up outside now, right? Are you going to still, go and put someone on their ass, going outside and allowing for your running back to, cut outside or whatever it might be. So just nastiness, and however you see that on the field, it doesn't have to be. I'm not talking about that big, beast of a tight end only, right? But even if you're that athletic dude, can you go out there and hit somebody even if you're lined up as a wide receiver?
Yeah, no, they got to have that, that tenacious. My coach used to always talk about tenacious. You got to be tenacious out there. You got to have that. And it's true. You got to have that tenacity out there. So I think that's a good breakdown of each position. And I know that Ben goes through each position more on his podcast. So take it out. I just wanted to kind of get this idea of like, okay, what are we looking for? Because we're going to start talking about the 2024 class. And, he's got some of his guys that we're looking at. I have a couple of people that I really, really like at this class. And we're just going to kind of go through some prospects that you should be. I mean, startup season's happening right now. I definitely college about February, March, definitely these Devy leagues are going to start really coming into play. So here are some guys that we think from each position that you should really look at. And we're just going to kind of give a breakdown. So you're the guest, you're the honored guest, you're the sport, you're the man. So, give me someone from the quarterback position that you really like.
Man, I got three quarterbacks that I really like. The first one is extremely easy. I feel like I'm cherry picking here because it's the number one ranked guy. It's Caleb Williams, but I really believe he's going to be special. He reminds me a lot of that Russell Wilson type with his escapability. His escapability is next level. He's already clocked at a 4.5 40 at the quarterback position. That's just silly. And he just makes guys miss. But what I like is he doesn't just take off. There's definitely a lot of plays of him taking off, but I like him using his escapability to then use his strong arm and just pick up like 40, 50-yard touchdowns like they're nothing. Yeah. And he's going to Oklahoma. That's a fun offense where, he's going to get a chance to air it out. And that's going to be someone that is special. So I got to talk about him just because he's so creative with his legs and he has the ability to take off, but he doesn't always do it. He uses it for escapability, which you don't always see when a guy is running a 4.5 at the quarterback position, especially when he's over 210 pounds already. So that guy's huge. And then when you talk about intangibles with him, he's an absolute competitor, like the ultimate competitor leader on the field. He's barking at his guys and they're not even putting their heads down. They're getting up. Like he just seems like he has that X factor. So this is the dude that kind of stood out above and beyond as of right now for me. But he's kind of number one across the board. So it's not a big surprise there. Sam Heward's the other one. You got Dylan Morris at University of Washington right now. Sam Heward's going to be coming in there, a lefty. And Dylan Morris played a really good freshman season. He was good. He did what he needed to do. They were in position to take the Pac-12 North there until COVID stuff or whatnot, and they pulled out of that game. So Morris did a good job, but Sam Heward is different as far as processing and decision-making. His dad played UW, played in the NFL as a backup. His uncle played at UW, started in the NFL for the Dolphins. So that's interesting. He's a lefty. It's always fun to throw off the defense with the lefty, when they're so used to not seeing that. Just extremely patient, goes through progressions consistently, has played with a lot of stars at the 7-on-7 level and just different programs he's doing outside of his own program. And he's got decent legs. He's not known to be he's a pocket passer, but he has good escapability. So he's going to be a really fun one to watch. I want to see that battle. Is he going to be able to come in there from day one and steal that job from Dylan Morris, who's coming off a good year going into sophomore year? I don't know. We'll see, but that's a guy you got to watch. And then my dark horse at the quarterback position is Drake May at North Carolina. So 6'5" beast. He is a big boy. And if you are a basketball fan at all out there and you pay attention to North Carolina, his brother is Luke May. So Luke May was a beast, helped North Carolina win a national championship. And he has that same work ethic grit. He's a little bit smaller. 6'5", his brother, I believe, was like 6'7", 6'8", somewhere around there. But he's athletic, strong arm. He is a pocket passer, but he's tough, man. He just stays in there. He'll take hits because, like, good luck. High schooler hitting a 6'5" quarterback, like, that's not really going to be an issue. A big, strong guy like him. Yeah. So he's fun. He's going to North Carolina, and, obviously Sam Howell is going to be finishing up there, in the near future. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Drake May could be a big riser.
Man, I love that. Man, as a Duke fan, though, I don't like hearing that May name because I can't do it. I hate that face. I hate it. It's almost as bad as Tyler Hansborough. But I like that. Sam Hurd versus Dylan Morris. That is going to be an interesting one. I like Dylan, but last year I never drafted him because I figured Sam was just going to take the job, and I felt like he was probably going to be transferring or whatever because that's how good Sam is. And he's just someone that. Mm-hmm. He's just a hell of a quarterback, guys. If you can get him, obviously you have that. I love the Drake May call. I love these kind of sleeper guys. And like you said, North Carolina, especially in Devy and those type of leagues, you probably get him later because people don't really know about him, and he's going to take over for Howell in that offense. Very late. We've seen it. A couple guys that I like, and I'm going to have him see if, maybe he likes him as well, or maybe I'm an idiot. One is Tyler Buchner from Notre Dame. And he's a sleeper-ish. I think people know about him. He's from my neck of the woods of California, so I tend to like my California guys. He's 6'2", 200. He is a dual threat, though, so he's not necessarily your typical kind of pocket passer going back there. He's crafty. He can make that escapability, I think, is probably his best trait. He has a pretty good build. He's got a pretty good arm, and now he's very accurate. So like I talked about, I love accuracy. He does show a very good job of accuracy. Now, he's probably got to get up to strength. His arm strength is probably never going to be like what we think of, like, oh my God, but he can sling it a little bit. He's creative. I kind of like his creativity. He does tend to run too much though. So when you do watch his tape, one thing that he does do, he looks to run. And that's kind of like that I feel like is going to get coached out of him, especially going to Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame has a kind of a wide open field at that quarterback position. I think that he's going to compete right away. So he's someone in campus to camp leagues that you might be able to take a shot on, and maybe you actually get production his freshman year. Maybe. I don't, Brian Kelly historically hates freshmen. Ask those freshmen out there that I have, like Jordan Johnson. But what do you think of Buchner?
Man, I think you hit it right on the head. He runs a lot. Like his tape is fun to watch. Yeah. He's competitive. He has that kind of X factor that I mentioned with Caleb a little bit. Like, he's a leader. He's a proven leader out there. That part is fun. I just think he runs so much, and I don't know. Are they gonna be able to coach that out of him? I hope so. But you also, do you really want to, or do you want to find a way to embrace that? I think they might just go ahead and use his running ability, and because he just has a little bit harder time on the deep passes is what I see. Extremely accurate, short, intermediate. The deep passes, but I also I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't think his wide receivers were extremely talented in high school either. So I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember. I remember looking at some of the tape and just kind of questioning some of those receivers. But
he doesn't have
off the top of my head. I don't remember on that.
It wasn't the best program. I mean, he was basically carrying that team when you watched him.
And it looked like it.
Yeah,
he's competitive, man, and I think he could win that job, say early on as an underclassman still, whether, coming in as probably sophomore year more likely, but we'll see. But I feel like they might embrace that running ability. He's fun, man. He's fun to watch, and the intangibles are definitely there's something there.
No, I mean, I would say, they have Drew Pine there, but I'm not a Drew Pine guy. He came in, he was kind of this unheralded guy. I think he's Ian Book, but I think he can be better than that. I think he can kind of come in and be a different version of Ian Book was for them, and you could see that growth in that offense. And I think they're getting guys around him and that tight end. Another guy that I like, and I don't know what your opinion of him, is Ty Thompson. He's going to Oregon, 6'4", 200. I think Oregon had a hell of a recruiting class when you look at kind of what they've done. He's big, he's 6'4". He's a big guy. He can sling it. He's got an arm. And so when you watch him, he's got an elite arm strength. He does have a pretty good mobility. It's not the greatest when I watched him play and when I saw it, but he does have that kind of accuracy and that ability to kind of escape the pocket. I don't know if he's going to come in right away and kind of take over that job. But the quarterback position at Oregon, I'm not a big guy on Shao and all those guys. It's whatever to me, but I think that he could come in and kind of compete. What do you think of Ty?
Yeah, man, he's going to have some fun weapons around him. Obviously got Franklin, who I think we'll talk about later, and I didn't want to put him on my list, but he would have been on my list if I didn't see him on yours. Yeah. Troy Franklin's a lot of fun. I think Seven McGee is a crazy underrated guy that we're going to see, and I'll talk about him a little later. Okay. That's another weapon that is going to be a quarterback's best friend. Yeah, man, so there's some potential. I love the arm strength. His escapability is solid, man. It's definitely solid. So I think that offense is probably going to be pretty creative, as they usually are. So he could be a big-time riser. He's got nice height and everything. So, yeah, could be big. That arm is nice. So we'll see how he develops with those receivers, man. But there's some star receivers.
I just need our boy Mekhi Pittman to do something because I drafted him in a lot of live leagues there, Ben, and he is not happening.
That's not happening.
He's killing me.
Sorry, man.
I know. It might be one of my misses. I'll be honest. Like I thought maybe he was going to take that step, but he is not. He can't get on the damn field.
You hear the pedigree, and he's solid, man. Like he's physical, but he's too slow. He's just, that's his issue. He's slow. Like they're out there throwing him bubble screens, and he's not even that fast. Like it just doesn't make sense. So I think that these guys coming in behind him are going to have a chance to, as the season goes on, probably steal some snaps. He's just going to be kind of that dude that's around. I don't even know if he gets drafted. If he does, it's going to be super late.
That doesn't make me feel very good. Nah. But you're right. I mean, the recruiting class, the talent that they have coming in is pretty damn good. And now I realize, like, I did it last year. I thought, late picks. It wasn't like I gave up picks, but damn it. All right, let's go to running backs. What do you think for some running backs? Because this running back class is pretty legit. I took a couple off the wall guys, but I would love to hear what you guys got.
Yeah, so for me, I stayed away from some of the top guys, but the running back class is always fun. But we talked about the unpredictability of it earlier, so I didn't want to just go and take the top guys. I took a couple. I'll start off with Seven McGee, the one I just mentioned for Oregon. He's currently listed, if you look up any of the scouting services, at 5'9", 167 pounds, I believe. So you're like, wait, what? At running back? Like, come on. So watch his tape, lateral agility, crazy. But he actually moved. So he's out of New York, just moved to the West Coast to play in, I believe it's in California, actually, to play in a league. I think they call it the Champions League. I could be wrong on the name of that. But he came out here to play, and rumor has it that he bulked up to 190. And I saw a quick couple little highlights, and he looked way bigger than his high school tape from the year before. So if he's anywhere near 190, he's going to be ready to hit the field next year. Yeah, I don't care if he gets any bigger after that, but he's a guy that you could see at running back, out of the backfield, at slot. Special playmaker, lateral agility, just explosive. And they're going to be creative and getting the ball. He is the guy that I think could steal some touches from Pittman early on just because of how they use Pittman. And that's a fun one. That's super under the radar, probably because of size. But he's going to be interesting, and he could transition fully to wide receiver. So we'll see how that goes. And then my other guy is, and I talked about him on a recent episode, going to Georgia out of IMG Academy, Lavassier Carroll. Scary. This dude's scary. 6'1", 190 pounds right now, with the frame to bulk up to that 220-ish, probably 215 to 225, somewhere in that range. He's one cut and gone. He's a 4.5 guy already. Okay. I do have some inside info, so I'm cheating a little bit there. But a guy who went to my high school as well, older than me, but we're friends or whatnot because we have a lot of mutual friends. I grew up. He kicked my butt on the basketball court because I stole the ball one time. He threw me into the gate. But that is Pro Bowler Mike Sellers, former fullback for the Washington football team. He's a beast, man, and that's Lavoisier's running back coach at IMG Academy this last year. So got some inside info. After his tape popped, I was like, I got to reach out and see what the deal is. Crazy hard worker. He said he's going to be in the league in 3 years. It's like, I have no doubts in my mind unless something crazy happens. Like, he will be there. But you watch him, he just takes off in between guys. Like, his strength at contact is incredible. But he's a one-cut running back that is just a monster. And if he's 6'1", 220-ish, it's going to be scary. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a, Chris Carson type dude with even a little bit more speed. But he's just a ferocious runner. He's an angry runner. And I like to see it. It's fun to watch. He'll be at Georgia. You talked about Zamir White coming back, which I wasn't thrilled about. They got your boy out there from Cali as well. So Georgia's got a loaded running back room, but Lavoisier is going to crack that sooner than later and probably get himself on the field. I wouldn't be surprised to see him, here and there in his freshman year, but I have no problem with him bulking up during that freshman season and just be ready to hit the ground running sophomore year.
Do you worry about Kendall Milton at all? Are you a Milton guy or no?
Milton's a stud, man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't mind him if he doesn't see it a lot next year because Milton's good, man. I like Milton a lot. Yeah. But what you're seeing now is it's typically not just a one running back show anymore, right, in college, especially SEC. So these guys are going to share anyway. They're not going. We don't want them to really be the workhorse. No. So I think Lavoisier still can get on that field and have no issues, right? And it's so easy for a running back to get hurt.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, hey, Milton went to school in Fresno, which is like 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away from where I live. And so that dude in his junior year, holy shit. Like he was a man amongst the boys out there. A couple guys that I like Byron Caldwell from California. He's a deep guy though. Okay. So he's basically the 13th ranked running back. It depends on where you look. And he's the number 17 player in California. He hasn't committed to a school yet. So he's still uncommitted as far as I looked. I've been looking and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. He was going to go to USC.
Yeah, I thought he was supposed to commit yesterday. I talked about him on my last episode was actually called California Love. And I just talked about underclassmen from California. So I knew there was a rumor he was going to commit yesterday, but I haven't seen anything either. But yeah,
I haven't seen anything with him. But you know what? As you talked about him, he has a lot of combination of size. He's quick. He's 6 foot, 193, but I think he can get in that. I think it's easy to get to that 205, 210. Like he could do it. Has very good hands. He's actually really versatile. I love him in both those areas. He's fast. I think he's underrated because even I'm in a big league with all the Dynasty Nerd guys, even Ray's in the league, and it's called the program where you recruit. They didn't even have him on their list where we could recruit this guy. So I think he's very underrated right now. But he's a guy to keep your eye on because I think depending on where he goes, I'm not sure. You probably have more insight where I thought USC was up there and I thought a couple other schools. But if he goes somewhere where he can make an impact right away, this is someone that can really make an impact.
Yeah, I think people hate it when someone takes time to pick the school they're going to. So you really see that affect their rankings coming in, and they seem to be, scared because a lot of people recruit the helmet early on, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the kicker is that you recruit that helmet. Now I'm going to go to a Clemson guy now, but I'm not going to go Will Shipley. Everybody knows about Will Shipley. There's a guy that I found, and I don't even remember what I was doing, but Phil Maffa. He's 6'1", 215 pounds from Clemson. Big. This dude, if you watch him just run the ball, I love it, bro. He is freaking the monster. He says he's 210. I feel like they're lying. Like, I don't know necessarily. I feel like that number is a little small. But this dude can carry. He's got one of the biggest lower halves I've ever seen as a running back. He's quick and he's got that lateral quickness. I don't think he's ever going to be that guy that just has that long speed just because of how big he is, but he's got really good vision. And when I was watching him, I was like, damn, his vision, and he can find holes. He sets defenders well. He actually has a pretty good jump cut, which for his size, I'm like, I don't know if he had it. But, Phil Maffa is a guy that I've really, really, really been higher on than most. And I'm looking to draft him instead of Shipley because I could see him kind of stepping in that role and having some just having that kind of in that Clemson running back room, there's not a lot of depth. They've had some transfers. I know they have some other guys coming in, but he could actually make a splash next year. I really feel like that.
Yeah, he is a beast, man. Yeah, I think that he was listed at 215, but he looks like, I mean, maybe it's because they're playing against a bunch of high schools, but he looks like he's like 225 right now. Yeah. And if you actually look, I was checking out some articles, that Dabo gave an interview to. He is pumped for him to come into this program. And obviously with the transfer of DeMarcus last year to Florida, who was the big 5-star stud that was supposed to be the next running back there. It's wide open. So I think you absolutely could see a pairing. This is a little bit of a thunder and lightning situation with Maffa and Shipley. So I'm excited for that one. That is one of my deeper guys that I'm excited about. So I like that one. I like it a lot.
Yeah. No, I like Phil. Like I just love watching his tape, bro. Like if you guys have some time, if you like Devy, go watch his tape and it'll just be fun. It'll be fun for like 20 minutes. You'll watch it like, damn, this kid can just play. And he's a guy, again, these are sleeper guys. These are guys that people don't think about. All right, well, so we'll go to wide receivers now. For everybody out there listening, we're wide receivers I think talent at wide receiver throughout college, NFL, it's amazing. It's fun to watch and see. And I, like we both talked about, we really like wide receivers. Who are some guys that you're looking at?
I'm gonna have to go with my two favorite, man. Both are going to Alabama, so unfortunately, I always feel bad when that's how it works out. But it's actually not their top recruit. So their top rated recruit is Ja'Cory, who also Ja'Cory Brooks also went to IMG Academy. He's good, man. He's real good. Like their whole wide receiver class, it's not really fair. But from an elite seekers, future potential standpoint, I actually like Ajay Hall way more. Ajay Hall is listed. If you look at all the recruiting places out there, he was listed at 6'3", 190. But I've actually dug in a little more, and it sounds like he's in that 205 to 210 mark already. So real interesting. If that's the case, we'll obviously get some more official measurements, probably springtime or whatever that offseason is going to look like. But he is a guy that has the frame to bulk up. Look at this guy's arms. Ajay's arms are just crazy long. He's a bully. I've looked at so much tape of Ajay now just to get an idea. He's mean. He's angry. He goes after. He attacks the ball in the air. He's just got these giant mitts to go get it. 4.5 40 already clocked for him at one of the opening. 37-inch vertical to go along with these go-go gadget arms, and just a frame that's going to put on muscle. So if I was looking, and I'm not going to call anybody DK, but if I was looking for that DK Julio type future guy, this is my guy in this class that I think that has all of the ingredients to grow into that. There's a long way to get there, and that's the ceiling of the ceiling, right? But his favorite player growing up is Julio. That's why he chose Alabama. So he does want to follow in those footsteps, and I think he'll have a chance. If he breaks through with this wide receiver room early on, like then I'm really gonna everybody's gonna shoot him up their boards. But I think he is overshadowed a little bit with that class that they have there. And then my other guy, who's also is kind of the thunder and lightning of the wide receivers for Alabama, but it's JoJo Earl, and he is one of my favorite players. And he flew up. He was like, oh, this is my deep find. However many months back I looked into him. And then it wasn't like a couple weeks later, he just flew up all these boards. I think his tape from this year started coming out a little bit, and it was just silly. But he's only 5'9", 170, but he's thick legs. So I think I'm not really concerned about that. I think he'll probably end up being a 180, 185, somewhere in that ballpark guy. If I'm projecting, he's absolutely electric, man. Like the stuff that he does, you see him on film consistently run into a group of like 5 or 6 defenders, and you lose him because he's so little. And then somehow he like shoots out the other end and he's gone. It's just crazy. And he's like, he's breaking guys' ankles. He's like the Allen Iverson of this class. He's out there just putting people on the floor consistently and having fun. And his productions through the roof led his team to, high-end seasons in Texas there at the top level. So JoJo is going to be special, man. This could be like their next Jalen Waddle type dude.
Oh, wow. So, hey, you heard it here first. We got DK and Julio, and we got Ivan Iverson, guys. You guys gotta, don't forget. We heard it. We did it. No, I agree. I think IG Hall is a guy. He's big boy. I tend to like I don't want to say that I only look at this, but recruits from Florida and Texas, I'm looking at those guys because they play. That's real high school football, guys. That's legit.
Yeah.
Like that. Those are the areas where they come from. And I know what you're talking about with JoJo because I knew JoJo and I kind of was watching him. And now all of a sudden you hear all the Devy stuff I'm in, all the chats and everything. They're all talking about JoJo. And so that's a good name to kind of keep an eye on because he's explosive. And he's explosive there. Now, I know I stole yours. I love Troy Franklin. I know that you just did it on Troy Franklin. I saw you had a tweet about him as well. He's going to Oregon. This dude's just dynamic in every way possible. Troy Franklin can play. And this might be one of the best receivers Oregon's gotten in a long time, to be honest with you guys. He's got good speed. He's from my neck of the woods as well. He's got that top end speed like you talked about. I really like his release. I don't know what you saw, but I think that his release to me is elite to where he can get out in and out of his breaks. He has good body control. That dude has just his arms and his ability to kind of make catches from different angles and just manipulate the body and the defender. This kid is a stud.
Yeah, this might be the best Oregon wide receiver recruit ever when it's said and done. And I mean that wholeheartedly. The biggest thing that stood out to me is long strider. It is effort. It literally looks like he is jogging through players. And he probably is. I think he's not even turning it up a gear yet. So it's just crazy. You watch him, his confidence. So we talked about intangibles. It's cockiness. He is extremely cocky on the field. Fun to watch. He's out there just showboating. Like if he was doing this in Texas or Florida or anywhere like that, like he's getting flagged literally almost every play, every single one of these touchdowns. He's out there doing the cheetah, he's trying to turn around, do it the other way, like on the same touchdown. Like he's out of his mind. But I actually love because everything you read into him, I dove in before I tweet about him because that's what I do. But his work ethic is supposed to be just next level, and that's what Cristobal is a hardworking coach. Yeah. He comes from that. You're going to bust your butt. He's a tough coach, right? And so for Troy to buck the system and not go to Bama or, some of these other SEC schools that wanted him as well. And UW, I thought it was going to be, him and Sam Hewitt doing the same thing they were doing at 7 because they played together. And you always saw Troy with the UW glove on. So I'm like, all right, man, we're about to get one. But no, he ended up, choosing Oregon. I think it was for the system. I think he likes how Cristobal is going to be tough on him and try to really feature him. And he'll be there with McGee that I already mentioned and Thornton as well. So it's going to be quite the combination for your quarterback pick there.
Well, that's why one of the reasons why I like Thompson is because I feel like with Franklin, that those two guys together, man, it's going to be fun to see. Not if you're a Washington fan, but if you're an Oregon fan and you're watching those things, I mean, he's game breaker, bro. Like he is a game breaker. He's a guy I'm excited to have. I have him at you guys talking about earlier. And like you mentioned, he's just a game breaker, and he's just that guy that he separates himself, right? Like you watch these guys on the field. It's like when you go into like how I do when you walk into a basketball gym, you'll watch him warm up and you're like, shit, that guy, he can play.
He's different.
He can just walk in the gym. Yeah. Like I don't really have a lot of those guys because I coach a bunch of Portuguese farmers. I love them to death, but hey, that's who we are. But like when you walk into a tournament and you're just like, oh, that dude's different. And you don't even need to watch. Yeah. You're just there. I think Franklin's that guy. You're like, oh, that guy's different. He's definitely there. And then another guy that I'm just going to call out. I know that because he's going to Michigan, he's going to suck because I'm a Michigan fan. I love Michigan till I die. But every athlete that goes there just fades away. But a guy that I really like is Xavier Worthy. He's a little bit small, but he's explosive. If they can get the ball in his hands, I feel like that he can create that kind of separation and speed that he needs. He's a pretty good route runner, and I like route running, and he can gain separation. I don't necessarily know. I think he's more of a campus to Canton player right now. I would be really comfortable taking him in that mindset. Devy, if you're just taking him for an NFL guy, I don't know. He's got to get bigger. He's going to have to show that he can project and be that guy at Michigan. Can they actually have a receiver for the first time since Braylon Edwards actually come out of there? And that quarterback position, I don't know, but I like Xavier. I don't know if you've and he's a little bit deeper guy here. I'm sure you know a lot about him, at least something about him.
Yeah. No, he's good. I think, he's only 160 pounds right now, and he probably looks like it, but he's game-breaking ability. I feel like Michigan is where, some of these receivers go to die, man, unfortunately. Yes. And I'm hoping DPJ is like, no, I'm going to show you guys I made it through. I made it through the trenches, and I'm here, and I'm a big DPJ fan.
I love DPJ.
And so, well, man, he had a special year considering, all the circumstances. So I'm excited to see that situation. But no, I like it. I definitely like it. I'm going to throw one more just off the top to you, who's way down the rankings. But that's Caden Prather, 6'3", 210 pounds, going to West Virginia. He's kind of he's got a little bit of that Troy Franklin, long strider, effortless. He's big, he's fast, he's bigger. And he could be special, man. Like, this is a guy that was heavily recruited by also the SEC schools, but he really felt comfortable with the West Virginia coaching staff. And I think they're going to feature him. Like, some of these schools that end up pulling a guy like Troy Franklin or Caden Prather that probably should have gone to, one of these big time schools, they feel like, okay, now we got to feature this guy so we can get the next stud. And I think that's an underrated piece to checking out some of these prospects, because, if they have the ability to develop and they're just waiting for their chance to get a stud, hey, this is the type of dude that I think could explode. He's not a light version of anybody. He's a big boy, and he's got speed. And Caden Prather, mark it down. He could be a fun one.
No. See, this is why I have you on, because you get guys like that people need to hear about, because I think opportunity is important, and whether they get that opportunity fast can be key for some of these guys. In Alabama, they got 27 5-star wide receivers out there, and you're like, okay, who's going to break through? And then when you look at Prather, you're like, oh, okay, he can have that. No, I agree. I like those guys. I'm going to stick to just one tight end, but you go ahead and give us some. Tight ends are really hard, guys. I'll be honest with you guys. Tight end position, especially when they're this young, like a guy like Cade Otton, who I really like from, Washington, your guy. I love Cade. Love Cade. I had Cade on my top 7 tight ends coming into this year.
I coached JV basketball. Like, when I was coaching a JV team, Cade was a freshman on the other JV team. So I was in that league. So we saw him twice a year. And his grandpa is actually the all-time winningest football coach in Washington State history. Like, crazy amount of championships. I don't even know how many championships, but from Tumwater High School. So this dude, it is in his blood. He is a grinder, like all grinders. He's special, man. He's a fun one. I think he's gonna go places.
Yeah, but a guy like that, I got him 30th round in a league I was in, and that was with good Devy guys that knew what they're doing. And you just gotta look and find these guys. I saw that. I wrote about him, like, hey, he's got that pedigree. He basically was behind Bryant for a couple years, so he had to kind of get his way in there. So you got to find those guys. Tight ends take a little bit longer. Not everybody's Michael Meyer and Eric Gilbert, who I think is going to be a stud, but you got to try to find these guys. So who are some guys you like from that position?
I'm gonna hit you with 2 guys from my Cali show. I'm gonna stick with California here, but Brock Bowers, he's ultra athletic, like as athletic as they come. 6'3", 225, already clocked at a 4.5 40 and a 40-inch vertical. That's crazy to me. I want to see what his measurements kind of end up at, because when he was clocked at those, he was 215. So that does change things a little bit. But this dude's just as athletic as they come. It is crazy. He's going to have to fight through some tough times at Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia doesn't always thrill me with what they put out there as far as the tight end position going to the NFL level. Mm-hmm. But I'm a huge Darnell Washington fan. He is a stud. He's a big boy. He showed us something again this year. Gilbert, I still think we haven't heard where Gilbert's going, but I think Georgia was an option. Has he picked yet? I haven't even seen.
He just said he might come back. So he's still, I don't know. I don't know.
What's going on. We don't know. I hope he doesn't go to Georgia, because it's a crowded tight end room, and he's going to take top. So that would kill 2 guys that I like. But yeah, Brock Bowers, just ultra athletic. And then I'm going to go a little bit different. We're going to go Northern Cali, go Bay Area a little bit. We're going to go Jermaine Terry, who's going to Cal. And he is an athletic beast, more of a 4'6", 4'6'5", somewhere in that range, but 6'4", 235. And you look at this dude's lower half, he's a thick dude. And And for him to go, I'm going to be the tight end, because I was concerned early on in the process that he might end up becoming a defensive end full time, because he's got that ability. He's got that nastiness. He's one of those dudes where you check out some of his tape, and whether he has a ball in his hands or not, he's running dudes over. So whether it's on a block or he's just going out there to crush a dude that's trying to tackle him, he's fun to watch. And he knows how to get open. He's very savvy. He finds the open zone. I was listening to a interview with Tuya Sosopo, and he's the guy that they didn't think they were going to get. So again, one of those situations where I think Terry jumps on. He's already physical enough. He's already big enough. And I think he might get in there and start getting some snaps early in the game. So Jermaine Terry, Brock Bowers, those are my two tight ends, both out of California.
Yeah, and I thought I did see somewhere Terry was compared to like David Njoku from the Cleveland, and kind of that mindset, and that's legit. I mean, they got Garbers there at quarterback, and I think that they'll have that ability there, and I think that's a good pick. One of my guys is an Oregon guy. Oregon had obviously guys that I didn't mean to do this, but Oregon for me, they had a hell of a draft class or a recruiting class, excuse me. But that's Moliki Matabo from Arizona. He's 6'6", 240 already. He's already kind of got that build. He still has room to add kind of probably some strength. They talked about that. He's an athlete. They lined up all over the place, and he was really a matchup nightmare when you watch him on tape. Every one of these guys kind of a matchup nightmare, but he's kind of that mold now where we see these tight ends splitting out, right? They go to that slot position. They had him play a little bit of receiver. He's well-rounded. He can catch. I like his hands, and he has that ability to go up and get the ball. He has that high point ability. So, Maliki's a guy that I think that can really separate themselves. Oregon's really losing their only tight end there. They really have a lot of open space at their tight end position. They've never really recruited the tight end position, so that kind of worries me a little bit. I don't know. They're going to have weapons there. I just don't know necessarily how they're going to use him. I hope they don't kind of stick him there and they don't use him very well. But he can definitely improve his blocking, but I love his receiving capability.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting. He's a big boy, man. He's a big boy. So,
yeah. Give me that.
A lot of weapons around him, too. So he should get a lot of one-on-one with linebackers, which is always nice.
Yeah, and give me that big boy in the tight end position. Besides my boy Brevin Jordan. I love Brevin Jordan. But give me that big boy that's there. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today, too, so I appreciate you guys coming on and listening to Devy stuff. But, me and Ben are both coaches. It's been a rough year. We didn't even realize this. Well, I did today as I was getting ready for the podcast and talking about it. But this was the anniversary of Kobe's death. I actually recently, one of my buddies, Nick, who has a website, I wrote an article for him about Kobe, about how much he meant to me and with my girls. I have two girls, and Kobe obviously was a girl dad too. We talked about that. And it's funny, as a coach, I grew up hating Kobe just because I was a Sacramento Kings fan. I'm from Northern California. He tore out my heart. I talked about it in the playoffs all those years with Bibby and all those guys. Those are my guys, and C-Web and those guys. And then over time, as I became a coach, I started realizing what Kobe meant to me, because every time I'd be like, hey, you need this mentality. Like, you need to just work. And I'd always like, oh my God, am I talking about Kobe right now? And I realized like, yeah, I am talking about Kobe. And so it's funny, as I got older, and I don't know, I'm sure it happened to you too. I had so much respect for him as a person and what he was about. It's just about the grind, right? We always talk about that. And people like athletes like Coach, they don't get that all the time. You only get a one or two of them like Kobe, like guys that just want to get in that gym and just work. And, we definitely wanted to talk about that. I know he meant a lot to you, and you have him in the background there, so I'll let you go ahead and talk about him too. But I mean, it's still a moment I just cannot. I just can't think about it all the time.
Yeah, man. I mean, as we mentioned pre-show, this is a tough day, and I think January 26th is going to stay a tough day, every year. But I also want to make it a day that we use to kind of recalibrate and reset for the challenges that are to come. Because, that's what the Mamba mentality was all about, is like embracing challenges and having no fear of failure and just higher expectations of yourself and those around you. Right. Yeah. And I'm with you, man. I grew up as a Kobe hater. I'm a huge LeBron fan. I was a huge Sonics fan growing up. And like, there's no way I'm ever going to love the Lakers. And look at me. I got my little Lakers set up back here. You got the Kobe. I got my little Mamba mentality book back here. Because as the years grew, I realized that I've been successful in things because of my mentality and for whatever reason, my ability to accept challenges and embrace them and be like, cool, what's next? Like, I'm excited. And it doesn't mean like those challenges are tough, but like learning about like what Kobe was all about, as my years went on, I'm like, dude, how do I don't hate this guy. And why do we compare Jordan to Kobe to LeBron or any of those really, when these dudes are just different? They're built different. Yeah. And their mentality affects all of those around them. So whether you're learning about any one of these guys, it's special. But Kobe in particular, I love that you brought up being a girl dad. I have 2 boys myself, but I love what he did for the women's game in a short amount of time, really, when you're looking at the big picture. He was able to just pump life into that game. He was willing to work with WNBA players, college level players, grade school players. It didn't matter to him. It was about lifting women to be a lot more equal. And say what you want about background and whatever stories and all that. We all go through crap and we all deal with different things. And, I don't know the whole story of whatever happened and didn't happen. But what I do know is what he's doing with his platform after the game and what he did during the game to lift the game and raise the level of those around him and those he competed with. You see, in his last year playing, the respect that every single competitor had for him. You didn't see anybody walk away from him. They went to him. He went to those guys. He went and lifted the younger players around him. That's what's different. So my personal story, as I began to, really follow along Kobe, especially post basketball and even in his later years, because, he wasn't killing my teams at that point. He was still, he would go out and get his, but it was easier to understand him because he wasn't destroying, teams that I liked. But now being a Laker fan and also understanding the history, because, I follow LeBron there. I followed LeBron around ever since I lost my Sonics. Yeah. That's been a tough situation. They're coming back one day. Don't worry about it. But last year, when I remember, I was at home, news came out, and I just started crying, just absolutely lost it. And I'm like, what's going on? And I just started watching all the stories. I start seeing every piece, like how hard it hit everybody. And I'm like, he was on his way to go coach and, being a youth basketball coach. I'm like, I can tie in with that. And I have been, and the mentality, all those things we talked about, but it's crazy. It made me go, all right, like life's too short. I was working a job that was very, very successful in a career. I was very, very successful. And I was actually on a 10-day vacation. And I decided when that news hit, literally like the next day, started putting my basketball academy together, that I had already had a bunch of plans, but I always was like next year when I have time and this and this, I never really like put it into fruition. So I got my logo done the next day. I put all this stuff together, and that was because I'm like, nothing's promised. And he always talks about like just going after these things. Like I could say I was busy, I was tired, I was all this stuff, but like he ain't saying that. He was busy, he was tired, he had a family, he had all these things. He was still out there killing people. Like it didn't matter. So it hit me like that, where I'm like, I need to have some more action and make something happen. So I did. And it's crazy because literally like a short time after that, I ended up, unexpectedly having a layoff. So when that happens, I'm like, all of these things kind of happen for a reason, and it changed the course of my life, where I thought I was going to be in this career for a lot longer, super successful, and then boom, unexpectedly get hit with that, literally like coming back. And it's been, 2020 has been hard. Like 2020 was crazy hard, but I felt like I attacked it in a different way. I've learned a ton this year. I made sure family was more important, and nothing comes above that, and spending time with my kids, my wife, those kind of things. But like it came from that moment to be shook like that, because I was in a rhythm. I was winning at work. I was doing what I needed to do to be the best at what I could, and I had that vicious mentality. And Kobe's talked about that. Like he was so ingrained with winning in his prime that nothing else mattered, nothing got in the way. And I was kind of doing that in my own workspace, right? Like we were number one in Canada multiple times, where I was told my team couldn't do it, and we were in a little small town, did all this stuff. But like it was that mentality. So now I'm like, he flipped the switch. So I need to force myself to flip the switch and figure out what's important. So I think I'm going to remember every day, like it hit me again, kind of just revisiting all that stuff and throughout the year. And that's why I had the book. And
Yeah.
You know, I just want to remember this as a day that we can reset and go, what's really important and how are we going to do it? And how are we going to leave behind a legacy behind us? Like, what's going to be there when we're gone? Because that was important. You see all these stories coming out now that he's gone. That's a legacy. And that's why I named my basketball academy. It's called Legacy North Academy. And it's because it's all about whether you're a player, whether you're a college player, whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't care if you suck and you only play till 7th grade, but you love it. Like, what kind of work ethic, what kind of legacy are you going to leave behind? How are people going to remember you? And that's something we talk about, but I don't think we action it enough. So that's what Kobe meant to me, and why I think it now has an emotional feel to it, not just words, and it's turned into action from that. And to see the level that he's really done that for people around the world, it's incredible. It's incredible.
No, I agree. You said it more elegant than me. I just remember being in the car with my girls and we were going to the zoo that day. But I remember that we had lost the night before. And like, how you talk about in basketball, varsity wise, it's about winning, man. And you get that mindset and you're grinding film and like, then you forget about your kids. And I know that's bad to say, but you get that focus of like, hey, I got to win because if I don't do this, I'm going to get fired, and you do this. And I remember when he passed away, I remember sitting in the car with my kids and I was so upset about the game. And I literally was just speechless, but I look at my girls, I'm like, you know what? That's the most important thing. And so I think I kind of had it from like a family perspective. Like these last year, I've just been grinding with them, like hanging out with them, taking them places and just being a dad. Whereas before I was a coach, dad, teacher, husband, all this other stuff. And now I'm like, no, you know what? This is the most important thing to me. And I look at it from that perspective, but I have Kobe to thank for that, because he kind of made me realize like, hey, idiot, your kids are the most important thing in your life. Like, that's your legacy, not freaking varsity basketball at some school. Like, that's not going to be your legacy. I do use basketball, but for my kids, it's there. So, hey man, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. If you're listening to this, we had a lot of people streaming it, but if you're listening to this, please, use his information, follow him. He's way under followed. I don't know what's going on. This guy should have like 20,000 followers. He knows what he's talking about. He's really good. Why don't you tell us again, like maybe what you're working on, what's coming up? Give us some things that maybe you're coming up on. I know it's secret though, Destination Devy. I know you guys got your secret stuff, but tell me like maybe some projects you're working on, what you're doing there, and where they can follow you.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you so much, Kevin. And it's crazy, like chatting with you. I feel like we've talked so many times, and we really only talked through messages. This is the first time we've talked face to face essentially here. And so I appreciate you big time, man. You guys can find me at Mr._Eby. I'm currently working on, I just kicked it off on the last episode, the Elite Region series, where I'm going to continue to focus on underclassmen, but I'm going to break it down by different states, different regions. I'm not going to go and probably just do like a North Dakota episode by itself. That might be a little tough. So I'll probably group that with some other smaller states. But who knows, our goal is to try to help you find these guys. And my commitment to everybody out there is I'm going to try to do my research and find out what about the intangibles, about players' mentality to the best I can with the info out there, to pair with what we got going on the field and on the film. So, hey, I appreciate everybody out there rocking with us. Destination Devy is an amazing resource that just continues to grow. We have the Patreon there. It's at patreon.com/allgas. Ray is just such a hard worker. You got Jordan Richards there. You got a whole squad there just pumping out, constant information and, responding to people so fast. It's unbelievable. I think we're over 500 people there right now, over 5,000 on YouTube. So it's growing, but we're continuing to grow and make sure that nobody gets left behind. And we continue to find more information and find ways to build and evolve. But I'm just thankful to Ray for bringing me on and giving me a platform to, talk about things and put the show Elite Seekers out there, which you can find at Destination Devy's podcast anywhere. It's every Friday. You'll see it listed as Elite Seekers, but it is under the Destination Devy network.
Yeah, no. And hey, check out their work, guys. As for me, you can find me at DuBois_22, hammercast.com. We have the, podcast. Our next pod, we're going to bring on my guy, Felix Sharp. He's been on before. We're going to talk about his poor league Detroit Lions. So we're going to look at the dynasty outlook there. And I have a Kenneth Gainwell piece coming up really quick. I'm writing it right now. It should be done by Friday. So keep an eye on that. So I appreciate you guys listening, and
if not, make sure you head over to hammercast.com, subscribe, and join the Hammer Nation. Until next time, keep grinding.